Welcome, everybody, to the Dev Life podcast. My name is Brooke, and I'm here with my very good friend and co-producer, Matt. Hello, Matt.
Hello.
And then today, everyone, we're actually joined by a really fantastic human being, someone I am so excited to talk more with in this episode. He's an entrepreneur, an author, a coach, and a pilot. So, welcome to Eric Farewell.
Glad to be here. Thank you guys so much for having me. This is I feel like I'm RGB'd out right now, and I'm gonna have to up my game next time we get together.
Well, you've got the blue lights behind you, so I think that counts.
It counts for something at least. One strip of LEDs. This girl has 1,800 strips just in her chair. I'm impressed.
It's pretty fun. All I can say is like when you're buying gear, don't buy podcasting gear, buy gaming stuff. Then you'll be set up. But
It makes it much more unique, that's for sure. And I have a gaming PC that you can't see that's hidden, and it lights up every color of the rainbow too. So
all
I
right.
feel like I kind of fit in.
Okay, well that is good. There you go. But okay, so now you've actually built like industry shaping brands, one of them being Aviator Paramotor, and then another one is National, do you say Stole or S?
Still,
And then you're also an author, and you were just saying you're finishing your second book, but the
yeah.
first one already published is called Farewell to Normal. Love the title.
Thank you. I stole it from my parents. They weren't very happy with me.
Oh, well. You know what? I think that's a cool play on words, though, because, like, so my name, if you take my first and middle initials and then my last name, it spells out bravery.
Nice.
So I've always said if I were an author, I know that like a lot of women really want to make sure their first full name is on there, but I would still do my initials because I think it'd be cool to be like, oh, that book is by Bravery.
That's amazing. No,
I don't
you
know.
absolutely should.
Anyway,
Write
so
your book, girl.
okay, well there we go. But anyway, so you are a published author though, very amazing. And then what I really love too is that you help engine or entrepreneurs, sorry, to grow businesses basically while just maintaining a healthy work-life balance and finding that purpose and not lost in the weeds and the muck of life. So very important stuff.
It is, and I will say I have to correct you a little bit because it's my nature. Balance doesn't exist in nature.
Mhm.
Right? Anytime that balance happens, that when equilibrium is struck by nature, it's actually immediately destroyed. Right? Its design is to be imbalanced. So we read. There's tons of books about work life balance. There's tons of different things. I mean, I talk to engineers. I have tons of friends at Google and all these amazing places. And the reality is they're all burnt out because there is no way to strike balance. So what do you do instead? I think that it's important to find what our flow is. And for me, my flow came from a place of recognizing what actually is my value. What is the value I want to bring to the world? What's my legacy? How do I want to be remembered? And it wasn't about adding another comma. It was absolutely make money. It's great to be comfortable and to have certainty. And also to build your inner story, your inner truth to such a point that even when the certainty is shaken, like this past year has shaken mine, like you wouldn't believe, financially, emotionally, spiritually, and I'm the happiest I've ever been. I'm more aligned with my wife than I've ever been. I am more engaged with my kids than I've ever been. Yeah, I haven't worried about money since 2016, and it's weird to think about money again. And also, it doesn't control me. And it'd be really nice if we made an extra 10 million this year. And also, if we don't, we don't. It's just it's all. I tell a lot of people like the financial game. Everyone thinks, oh, you're playing a different game. You're playing a different game. We had our production trailer for National Stole flip and burn in Montana last month, and it's like a $300,000 loss almost. And insurance is offering us 5%. They're like, oh my God, Eric, you're losing all this money. You're playing a different game. No, I'm playing the same game. We just have different chips. It's all the chips are whatever your nervous system are willing to accept. Like if your nervous system is comfortable at 150 million, $200 million a year level, then it will accept that. If it's comfortable at 200,000 a year or 20,000 a year, you're going to upper limit yourself based upon what your nervous system is comfortable with, but it's all the same game.
Hmm.
Sorry, I get excited about tangents.
No, I really like that. I think that there's a lot of wisdom in that and just not fighting life, but doing your best and then learning to kind of flow with what life brings and presents to you.
100%.
Yeah.
It's a
So
must.
Let's dig into that a little bit. I'm curious how you broke this cycle.
Hmm. Well, I can drive into that. So I deeply believe that for most entrepreneurs, being an entrepreneur is a trauma response. It was for me. When I started working, I was 7 years old. My grandparents had a restaurant. I knew I wanted to buy an airplane because what 7 year old, but no, it was impossible. Well, actually, some did, but I didn't listen to them. So I went to work. And by the age of 7, I was number two of 4 or 5 kids, with a very busy set of parents. We sold books to homeschoolers. We traveled the country half the year. We were well to do for about 3 months of the year, and then broke the rest of it. And I very quickly determined that my value to receive the love that I didn't get in my family was determined by how hard I worked. And when I was 7, 8, 9 years old, working in a kitchen, which is a French kitchen, it was very strict, very loud, very obnoxious. If you've ever watched the TV show The Bear, it's just like that. And I watched that and it was like, I'm shaking. I'm like, this is my, and I couldn't turn it off. Like, I have to watch it because it's so reminiscent of my childhood. And I excelled. I'm good at hard work. I'm good at pushing myself. I'm good at working doubles and triples and back to backs and cleaning the kitchen after everyone else leaves. And like, whether or not that was the right thing for a parent to allow their child to do, it was a huge tipping point for me to recognize that my value comes from the work I put out. And it's not true. It's not the only place my value comes from, but for 30 plus years, that's what I believed. And when I discovered entrepreneurism and building my own businesses, I was 13. And I've been around, my grandparents had the restaurant, my parents had the book business. I've been around people building businesses, so I knew how to work. And I built my first business, which was selling airplanes on this new thing called the internet back in 1999. And I just went after it like a deranged cat. You want it to leave you alone, but it can't. And so I just worked, and I worked until, if I wasn't working, I was learning, I was training, I was finding mentors, I was going to conferences, I was learning how to speak, I was constantly pushing myself. And for most of my life, up until I had a huge wake up call in 2018, I basically found all of my value in the chaos that I would create and then solve. And today I get to help myself and others overcome our fears to be present with who we really are, instead of trying to offload that trauma, that drama, that experience, and not, a lot of people with drugs, alcohol, porn, whatever. I did it through work. Work was my place that I felt safe. And I have to say, on the other side of it, now we own 5 companies. My work schedule is 90 minutes a week, and it's work that I love. I'm coaching a group of incredible entrepreneurs who are doing amazing work and finding themselves. And at the heart of the work that I do is, how do I help them learn to love themselves despite their work, despite their output, despite who they think they're supposed to be. And that's been my own work the last 7 years.
I love that. I think a lot of developers can relate to that, being hard workers and finding value and meaning from being known as hard workers. And a lot of developers like myself who also was an entrepreneur and, made it happen. I think I also found value in a similar way to you. And so I guess that's support to your theory. But that does lead to burnout, imposter syndrome, or challenges of not losing self to your work identity. And so your story is all about finding adventure and joy while still building meaningful companies. And I love that. I think that's amazing.
I think it's a cool responsibility we have as those who are willing to take the risk, the entrepreneurs who are willing to push forward. We have, like, I have a nonprofit, I have a foundation that it was created in a great state of, we want to create change. And I quickly realized that with a nonprofit, you have a board, you have all these different layers, you have different, certifications to make sure that this person's doing their thing correctly. There's so much more change that can be done through for-profit companies. It's such a higher rate of change. So now I'm like, how do I build more and more like for-profit companies that I install really passionate teams into, that really believe in what we do, so that they can make the world a better place, and it doesn't just have to all rest on my shoulders or on the government shoulders or on nonprofit shoulders. And interesting place now I'm in this world of angel investors and VCs, and I see these family offices who have such a desire to create change, but they're stuck in their multi-generational wealth of not really understanding what they can do to make a vast difference in their own lifetime.
Okay, I want to really focus on that for a second. It's like overworking or trying to, feeling like you have to like prove yourself. But everything you've said so far to me is not opposite of that, but you're saying that isn't quite the right mindset. Matt and I run like a local uh, conference and in-person meetup, and then we do the podcast. Like we know what it feels like to be busy, but running a nonprofit is significant. And if you've done that multiple times, I can only imagine the load.
And I actually feel a lot of shame around the nonprofit because it launched the same
Oh,
year that my brother died. And my
right.
entire focus shifted. It went from make more money, be more valuable, hit 50 million a year, hit 100 million a year. I had this belief that if I hit a certain number, suddenly everyone would think that I
Yeah.
was lovable and I was worthy and I mattered. And so it's one of those delicate balances where when all of your priorities shift, I stopped going to the office 100 hours a week and started going to the therapist 10 hours a week.
Okay.
It's like
Yeah.
everything changed in 2018, 2019 for my family.
That's exactly what I was wanting you to get into is what was that mind shift? What was it? And what do you feel like in your mind you started to say differently to yourself, or what were the inner beliefs that you started adopting instead of what you had been thinking or saying before then?
It was far from overnight. It was certainly a long process. But the reality was, I woke up one day, my brother's dead, and it had been 6 months. In those 6 months, I had arranged a funeral, flown my family home, called them, and I told them all that he'd passed. And he died in a car accident. It's totally unexpected. And he was 22. He had a 3-month-old son. And I've held it together for everyone else. That's what I've always done. I'm creating chaos. I create chaos to be good at it. And in this situation, 6 months later, I woke up and I couldn't walk to the bathroom. And I'd already broken my back twice. I was a test pilot and I've got 7 broken vertebrae. Right now I have a ball on my desk that I can throw behind my back in this chair and get my stretch in. But this was a pain like I had never known. It was complete, like complete body shut down, heavy. And I started trying to find like whatever I could find that might help. And so I'd been seeing a chiropractor 3 to 5 days a week for years. And I said, well, this is great. I started trying new places and eventually met this somatic healer who used emotion code, which is a system that allows you to process the emotions your body cannot process. There's a book called The Body Keeps the Score, which is a fantastic read. Healing Back Pain, cut by Michael Sarno, is another that's kind of similar in the same thread of like, hey, yes, your body may be messed up, but a lot of it's probably emotional because you can't process the things that have happened to you, by you, and for you. And summarily, your body is resisting. I see this with a lot of clients who have major issues with their body, whether it be autoimmune issues, basically where their body starts to attack themselves. I went in for an allergy test around the same time, and I was allergic to absolutely everything except for one type of grass. My body was eating itself alive. I was so distraught, but didn't have the tools to know how to grieve. And the reality growth, the first is disgust. It's what you hear all like is grief. And so if we really want to grow, we really want to be the person we're meant to be. There are deep tragedies. Matthew and I share many. And for a long time, I questioned, like, why? Why would they take my brother at 22? Why would they take my friend's son at 1 or before? Like, why do these things happen? And I realized that these are catalysts that we either suppress and they come back and bite us, or that we embrace and we learn the tools to actually be fully present with all that is. And the deepest gift that I have in my life today is I know what real presence is. And I'm far from perfect at it, but my life is now about that presence. My life is now more about how do I remain in my body, remain engaged with whatever's happening by me, to me, for me, and shift it into a gift. And I'm not perfect at it. I fail at this a lot. This week I failed at it. But as I started to learn these tools and started to learn what a different life could be, my primary emotion growing up that was allowed to the masculine was anger or rage. And I had a softness to me, but it was beaten out of me. And now the last thing I want for my children to witness is a father who's only anger and rage. I want to have a range, an emotional range that I can be present with whatever their experience is. Even if I don't understand it, even if we like, I don't get their own personal journey, it's not mine to judge, it's mine to be present with. And I try to be that man for my friends. I try to be that man for my clients. And it's been a really interesting journey of 7 years now of doing this work and going, oh, if I want to be the version of me that experiences everything in life as love, what does that man look like? What decisions does he make? I have a friend, Garrett Weber Gale. I just put his story in my book, and he's an Olympian swimmer, another front row dad like Matt and I, how we met. And he was in the 2008 Olympics with Michael Phelps when we were supposed to lose. There was no chance. The French had us. It was a 3-man relay or 4-man relay, and there was not a chance we could win, and we won. And now he's one of my best friends here in Austin, and he says, Eric, what are you training for? And I said, well, jack shit. I'm a twice broken back asthmatic loser who, I'm 6'4", 195 pounds. That's like pudgy and pasty. And of course I'm not training for anything because I can't do anything because I'm broken and that's just living in the victim. So no, Eric, doesn't matter if you're training physically. What are you training for? And now I am training. I'm not sure what for physically, except to be stronger and be able to play with my kids harder. Mm-hmm. But that opened something in me. It reminded me. It's like, whatever I'm doing, I'm training for something. I can train to be a skinny, fat 40-year-old next year, or I can be the best possible husband that's engaged with whatever my wife's experiencing. I can be the best possible father. I can be, and it all starts with how do I love myself? It all starts with how do I show up for me? Because if I don't fill up my cup first, I have nothing to give them. So that's a very long answer to what I think was the question.
No, I love that one line right there. Whatever I'm doing, I'm training for something. I think that's a really great quote. I love that.
Well, and even just like, what are you training for? That's like, what is your why? And like, let's start there. Whether you're a engineer who wants to just, code for someone else, or maybe you're an engineer who wants to code for yourself, something. Maybe, I don't know. But what is your why? Why are you coding? Why are you, whether if you're an entrepreneur, why are you pursuing this business instead of that? Find your why, and then that might be a good starting step. But along those same lines, for people who do feel stuck and they feel stuck in, let's say, just a job that's not taking them where they want to be, maybe as a developer, maybe as in another role, what's one small step that they can take towards healthier success, in your opinion, Eric?
My answer to this isn't very kind. People don't like this one. When we decided to start Aviator, we had a 1-year-old, or almost 1-year-old. I guess he was probably 5 months old. We were pregnant with our second. And I'd left my business that was making me really good money about 2 years before. I did the logical thing 15 years ago when I started a YouTube channel, and I decided to make that my livelihood. Went from 6 subscribers to 26,000 in the space of a few months. Grew that to 35, grew that to 45. It's making about $6,000 a month. And then YouTube changed their algorithm and I went to making $60 a month. One change.
Yeah.
And I understood why. I mean, I'm a business guy. I'm a business nerd. I was a homeschool high school dropout. I've had nothing but time to learn. I love this stuff. I understand why they made the change, but it completely crippled what I was trying to build. And then all of a sudden I get this passion to develop this paramotor business, a business where you teach people to put a fan on their back and run into the sky. It's like flying in your dreams. It's the most incredible experience. And I knew what our numbers were. And the reality is most people get so much lifestyle creep that if you're a developer and you want to do something different, you feel panic because there's no way you can. To cover the lifestyle you have, the meals you eat out, the nice apartment or house you're in, to make sure your family's insurance is covered, to cover all these different elements, it basically feels impossible. You're tied by golden handcuffs to a business that you don't want to be in anymore. And we did the opposite. It seems ridiculous. We sold our nice car. We bought 2 1980s BMW E30s that I could work on that had no computers, so I could fix them myself. And I'm not that handy, but I'm handy enough to follow a YouTube tutorial pretty well. And just said, what can we cut? Like, how do we get our expenses to the lowest possible dollar amount? We were already in a $93,000 house. So our expenses at that time were $1,681.35 a month, which is astronomically cheap. I mean, that's a 30th of what I spend now, right? Now I spend a little bit less than that, but still it's comically low. We live in Central Florida. There's no state income tax. There's, it's low cost of living. And I figured out, I said, okay, for $1,681.35 a month, I need to bartend 3 to 5 nights a month. So I have to get to the 24th, 25th of every month, and I have to go, hey, is our nut covered? I created a beautiful little parachute for myself. Like if I was developer, maybe it's Fiverr, maybe it's, finding someone who will pay me $50 an hour to do something. One of my clients used to be a farmer, and he says, my back end, like what I'm going to do if everything else fails was to shovel shit for $15 an hour. That was his line for a really long time until he met us. It's like there's always some area. Maybe it's not making the money you want to make. Maybe it's not the level of income that would make you comfortable, make your spouse happy. But if you believe in something, you have a clear enough mission, a clear enough vision, and you have the values around why it matters to you, it becomes really obvious that you have to do this thing. And that requires sacrifice. So we ate beans and rice and ramen for almost 3 years. And then we were pregnant with our third child, and they put us on food stamps. And our food budget went from $28 a week to $125 a week. And that's when the business just blew up. It was this moment of, oh, I don't have to worry about how to feed my kids beans and rice. We're going to be okay for at least the next 3 months. And we used that money for 9 months worth of food. We filled our freezer. I put every penny back in the business. I never had to go bartend. I never had to take money out. I never had to go out for outside investment. I built something I believed in that the market needed. And, fast forward 5 years later, we had our first $1 million year. A couple months after that, we hit 1,000,002. I think it was 45 days later, 1,000,003. Something like 18 days later, we hit 1,000,004. And it was the stupidest business I've ever created. It's a business that at the time, the niche was 1,200 people in the United States. Now we've trained almost 4,000 people over the last 14 years. We train the militaries of the best governments in the world. We've trained the SEALs on Hawaii. We've trained the Delta teams on camp. I mean, you name a crazy cool thing that you shouldn't be able to do. We've done it. Worked with Natick and DARPA, and it's built a real business that not only has supported my family, but supported almost 30 other families through my dream. They're buying houses and having kids and building wonderful lives. And I just feel so honored to have taken the risk. It was a very calculated risk. I'm extremely risk adverse. Like I calculated the heck out of the risk, understood all the numbers, and said, here's my way out. And I have to do this thing, or I won't feel like I've honored myself.
Okay, so that I want to focus on that a little bit too, because like you, so I have a master's degree in education. I was a teacher, right? And that was just not getting me where I wanted for multiple reasons, financially, but professionally, personally. I loved teaching. I loved working with my students and some of the creativity that really comes with the job. But it's also a job where you basically do the same thing year after year. And there's not a lot of upward growth. And that is something I can't do. I am someone
Mm.
that needs that upward growth, and I need that like constant progression of feeling like I'm learning and I'm developing new skills and not just sort of like copy and paste, you know.
What age students did you teach?
It varied. I've done some with adult students, but then really I focused on like elementary, so sixth and third grade
Okay,
third was my happy place.
that's amazing.
But I made the decision because I wasn't happy, right? And here I am, I have this degree in education, but because like through teaching, I got involved with ed tech, and that kind of led me to finding out about what is this software development, what is coding. And it was a really scary decision. At that time, my health was awful. Like you mentioned autoimmune disease, and I had all sorts of things going on, and it was just not good. Like really scary stuff in and out of
Mm.
the emergency room. But I took this risk. So I quit teaching at the end of that school year and dumped basically 12 grand into engineering boot camp and went without an income, no insurance, despite having all these health issues,
Wow.
and pursued something that just sparked this excitement in me like nothing else had. And it was so scary. And like I could go on and tell you more and more of the story, but the point of what why I'm saying this is because that was a risk that just like in my heart, in my very being, I knew that that was a risk I needed to take.
Mm.
And you just mentioned taking risk as well. So how can software engineers, how can entrepreneurs know which risks are worth following or not? And I know that's going to be different for everyone, but what advice can you give on taking those risks?
So first off, anyone who gives you advice is someone you shouldn't listen to,
Okay.
because advice stipulates that I believe that you aren't smart enough to figure it out on your own. A decade ago, I joined a group called Entrepreneurs Organization. There's about 25,000 members around the world. You have to make $1 million a year to join. And they sit you in an 8-hour class that teaches you how to never, ever give advice again. They call it Gestalt, Gestalt, Gestalt thinking. And Gestalt, the whole concept is everyone in the room is at least as smart as me. And when they share their problem with me, I'm only getting maybe 15% of the reality, right? Maybe they're sharing completely vulnerably. They're telling me everything that's happening in their heart and their world, but it's only their perspective. And our perspective is based on our memory. And here's a fun philosophy for you. Our memories have been scientifically proven to be false. So all that we really have when we hear a perspective is the lies that someone told themselves, right? So if I were to give you advice on what you should do in that situation, it's completely colored by my own perspective, which again is a lie I tell myself. So I don't give advice, I share experiences. And the reason why I make this very clear definition is, one, don't take advice from people, because advice is discolored by people's own expression, their expectations, and what they believe in themselves and in you. Second, everyone needs a mentor. Okay. A mentor is someone who is where you want to be. This doesn't necessarily mean financially, but it means they're living their life in a way that you want to live it, and their production, the world that they're creating for their legacy, the way they'll be remembered, reflects the way you want to be remembered. Second, everyone needs a coach. A coach is there to look at you, to learn you, and to understand what rhythms you are in consistently, what areas of your life that you fall back into a childhood trauma pattern, and no longer is Brooke the bravery, awesomeness leading, but her 7-year-old self. Because no matter who I talk to many men and women who are like, oh, I had a great childhood, I had no trauma. And then this little thing sneaks out. I'm like, that's a trauma. It doesn't have to be a big T trauma to still be traumatic, right? Our nervous system still doesn't know how to process it. And that's okay. But we still need to learn how to. As adults, that's our job. Our job is to process that trauma and to learn the right tools. So coach, mentor, community. The last piece is community. The last piece is the most important. Community is currency. Okay. If you have a strong community of people who care about who you are, that's how you can take risk. It's how you can take a risk, because once you understand why you're going to do what you're going to do and you pitch it to your community, you express it to the people you care about. This could be the family of your birth. It could be the family of your choice. It could be industry communities like the one you guys are developing, which is amazing. As people buy into that, it's not currency until you take a withdrawal, right? It's just community. A few months ago, I sat down, we got doged in February, we got tariffed in April, we had to part ways with our CEO, we had all these major things happening, and we've got 5 companies. Like, there's a lot of moving pieces. And for the first time in years, I've always been a person that pours into my community. I've had to go, hey, I need help. And the first guy I called was a guy named Garen Jones, and Garen says, Eric, you don't need help. You need support. And for years, you've been like a bridge, and a suspension bridge is only as good as its support. So stop asking for help. Know that we want to support you because you've been a bridge for all of us. And I went, oh, crap, you're right. So mentor, coach, community, belief, and clear mission. If you have a belief and a clear mission, you can ask for support from people who believe in you, who know your heart, and want to see you thrive. And then, because it's kind of my nature, I hope you don't mind. Do you mind if I go personal?
Go personal, yes.
Awesome. This is for Brooke. So
the Dev Life podcast, it's about life. So let's
It is, yeah.
Awesome. So you wanted to be a teacher because you wanted to help kids?
For various reasons. It was initially I went back to get that master's degree because I really wanted to go and lead adults on study abroad programs. There's something about travel and discovering life and self outside, that really calls and appeals to me.
Mm.
I also find tremendous value in the act of teaching and learning. Like it is what we're here for. I feel like it is the purpose of life. And so it's the most like fundamental need, uh I think, like growth outside of like air and water, some of these basic fundamentals. But it just, yeah, it just kind of called me. And I'll be honest, my mom is a teacher and her parents were both uh doctor, like deans at a university. And so education's been a huge part of my family, and I grew up saying, I don't want to be a teacher. Are you kidding me? So the fact that I even went into it, I think there was that resistance for so long, but it kind of caught up with me, and it's a good example of how you should keep yourself open to possibilities and not just like turn your back on things.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. So what you highlighted then is a desire to help people travel so they can learn deeper things about themselves, to grow, whether that's adults or kids. That's awesome. And you've also recognized that there is a limit to the hierarchical ability to grow in the role yourself, right?
right.
You are now capped. You're a teacher. That's what you do. You teach. Maybe you'll be a principal someday, and you're still going to be miserable, and it's still going to be chaos, and it's still not going to be what you want.
Right.
So the entrepreneurial shift, the shift that for me, and I have a friend here in Austin. She has an incredible school for high schoolers, and it's a micro school. There's like, I think she has 8 or 12 students, right? And when I hear her passion for this, she started it for her daughters. And she's like, she wants her daughters to grow up with a different way of thinking, right? And I hear this and I said, that's amazing. And Dripping Springs, Texas needs this. And also the whole world needs this, right? So this is how my brain works. How do I take this brilliant idea and now turn it into a worldwide movement, right? And that's where the community comes into play. The school my children go to is called Acton Academy. There's a book called Courage to Grow. It's a phenomenal book, phenomenal school. It started as a MBA program at UT. Then the wife of the professor looked at their elementary school kids and said, I don't want my kids in traditional school. I want to do what you guys do at the MBA program. And this school is magic. And there's over 300 of them around the world. They continue to grow and scale. The kids who are graduating from our high school are all getting into top tier Ivy League schools because they think differently. They've been challenged. They have deep debates. I think it's 6 times a day. And like the elementary school might be ketchup versus mustard. In the middle school, the example given in the book is, there are 5 of these whales left in the world, and you're in an ice cutter. And there's a displaced ship with 130 humans on board. And you have a choice. Are you going to go save the whales, or are you going to save the 130 humans? Why? Defend your position.
Wow.
And so my 12-year-old and 13-year-old, 14-year-old now are going through these deep questions, challenging their beliefs. So while I absolutely hear you that there's not a path forward to change the traditional model, at least not as quickly as you and I might like, there are other models out there that I guarantee you, if you found that element, like I have a friend, I actually mentioned him earlier, Garrett Weber-Gale. Garrett has a business called Surf Term and Powder Term. And they take kids from action academies to Costa Rica for a month, or to Colorado for a month or 6 weeks. And they take middle school students with no electronics, and they say, hey, you're going to learn how to surf, you're going to learn how to ski, and you're also going to do all your core skills. And there's no teachers, there's only guides. And the guides are there to ask questions, and the guides generally just reflect the question back to the student and make them work harder.
Wow.
But it's how life works. It's like you'd be a baller surf term or powder term guide. Like, what if that becomes the thing? And now, instead of it just being your vision, now you're taking on someone else's vision and building something that's so much bigger than whatever you believe there was, the stuff that you've learned. And that's the thing. Other people are like, oh, I have so much sunk costs. I spent $12,000 in years becoming a developer. I have this podcast. I have so much sunk costs. It's a fallacy. All of those things that have led you to where you are right now, whatever determines your passion, whatever you believe is where you can bring the greatest outcome of good to humanity and to yourself. All of the things that brought you here are gifts that you'll be able to lean on and go, oh, well, you're struggling with algebra. Let me talk to you about how I use algebra in my daily life when I was a developer. Let me talk you through why geometry matters. Let's talk through sacred geometry. Let's look at biology. Let's understand all these different things that you now have understanding of. And I have to add one extra caveat. My deep passion for travel is there also because I think that when you teach someone what different people's lives are like, we shift the overall understanding of ourselves. That's why my businesses are all focused around aviation and media. It's because my personal mission is to help myself and others overcome our fears to sit in presence with who we truly are. When you fly, you shift your perspective, which allows you to change your fears. Astronauts call it the overlook effect. It's this idea that we look at ourselves in the world differently because of something we've done. So all of my businesses support the same thing, and I want to see you do the same thing. So I'll make any introductions you need. That would be amazing. Go teach people and travel with people and do things that inspire you. And there's a reason why when you apply for jobs, you don't get answered. It's because you don't actually want that job. That's a flawed mentality. If you went to the people who love you the most, who believe you the most, and say, hey, I need a floater loan of 25 grand. I'm going to move out of my nice house. I'm going to move into a small apartment. I'm going to buy an Airstream, whatever it might be. I'm going to shift my life's focus to have this mission be everything. You'd be shocked how many people would invest in you.
Wow. So yeah, I mean, man, we're there's so much to dive into here. I'm gonna go back just a little bit because I think something super interesting was said is Eric you were talking about how you start maybe use Fiverr if to you or in my dad's book he says dance in a tutu, like whatever you got to do to
Okay.
get profitable enough to survive during that early phase, and Brooke, yeah, you shared a story where it's like, you're starting, you had to take kind of a risk and jump and change careers but what I loved about both your stories is they both t ended up with you going into something you both are super passionate about. And I can see it. Like when Eric talks about flying, it's like, it's clear to me you love flying, and Brooke
I
with
do.
that. For me, actually, when you said made the Fiverr analogy, I was laughing because I did that when I started my multi-million-dollar business. I did it with Upwork to start. That was my dancing in the tutu was freelancing on Upwork before I started it. So, common thread there. And then, after that, we went into redefining the success, and I kind of want to go into that a little bit more. So I know that you published a book, Farewell to Normal, and
Yeah.
in it you talk about redefining success. So what does that mean for you now
Oh
compared
man.
to when you were scaling Aviator Paramotor?
So I was at the place in my life. My brother passed. My marriage is falling apart. I barely know my kids. I'm working 100 hours a week, and something had to give. My health was on the downcline. My my BP when I was 32, I'm 39 now, was 194 over 92, which is like I thought you were supposed to get a high score. I was like Yahtzee, I win. And they're like, no, you're gonna die, you dumbass. It was one of those moments, and it was really hard because there's so much ego tied into what we do, into our titles, into um, being needed. And I built my office with an open door policy, and I had an assistant that would sit there on my couch. And she at one point got a stopwatch out, and she's like, after a couple hours, I said, "What are you doing?" She goes, "Eric, on average, it's every 78 seconds that your door is closed, no one's in here but us, that someone knocks on your door to ask you a question. Every 78 seconds. You can get anything done when you're just
Oh,
distracted every 78 seconds." Right. And it's how I built my life. I built my life to be needed because when I was needed, I felt like I was lovable. Again, it's a trauma response. It's a response of not having the love I needed as a kid. And again, my parents did the best they could, but they didn't have the tools. And they had 5 kids in a business. Of course, it's going to be tough. But that doesn't excuse what I needed. Doesn't mean that I didn't deserve to receive love the way I wanted to be loved. And that's what I try to do differently with my kids is how do I meet them where they are with what they need versus with what I have left to give. So we started therapy. Therapy turned into a marriage retreat. The marriage retreat, I learned the most powerful thing I've ever learned in my life. They separated the men and the women into 2 different rooms, and the men sat eye to eye, knee to knee. And after a couple of minutes in perfect posture, shoulders back, hands on your thighs, of breathing with the leader, he said, "Gentlemen, what you're practicing is self-control." And I was pissed. I was livid. My whole life, everyone always told me, Eric could be president or in prison, president or in prison. If you just need to find more self-control, but no one told me how. No one explained what self-control was. I read it in the dictionary and the encyclopedia. I tried to understand, but there was never any practical solution for how to find self-control, how to be in charge of my nervous system instead of it controlling me. I lived my life in fight, flight, or freeze. My adrenals were so fatigued. I still don't feel adrenaline unless blue lights come on behind me. Like skydiving, cool as a cucumber, all the way to altitude. A little bit of nerves about hitting my head on the tail. Otherwise, I'm good. Getting in an airplane, totally good. Doesn't matter if I'm upside down, right side up, flying 10 hours, 2 hours, doesn't matter. Right. My adrenals were completely shut down. So going from this fight or flight into a relationship with my nervous system changed everything. I learned to meditate. From that, I learned breath work. From breath work, I learned all sorts of different somatic body work and healing. And at first, it was just me as a receiver for years. And then, gosh, I was on a friend's podcast, much like this, about 18 months, 19 months ago. And we recorded this podcast. And at the end, we wrapped. And he said, "Eric, can you teach me how you did that?" I'm like, how I did what? He's like, you own 4 companies, you don't work. And I was like, our daughters are best friends. So he knows this is true because every time he's like, hey, you want to do something? I'm like, yeah, let's do it. I'm always free. you know,
Yes.
Matt knows we used to play Call of Duty together. Like I'm
Yeah.
always free, you know?
I
And
was
so I
free
did.
too.
Right, exactly. So I started coaching him and it was magic. And then the podcast dropped and 7 people reached out and I didn't have a coaching business. This was not something I'd planned. And I started coaching a couple of those 7 and I watched their lives change in front of me. And it was the most magical thing to go, oh, all of the pain, all of the suffering, all of the trauma, all of the learnings, all of the experiences, all of the craziness that I've experienced in my life is actually not just here for me to learn the lessons. It's for me to soften the lessons for others. It's for me to help be a guide that when you're having trouble with your spouse, well, I've been there. When you're having trouble with a business partner who lied about who they were and stole from you, I've been there. When you have employees leave because they're going to a competitor and they said to you that you were best friend, but they were talking behind your back, I've been there. I know those messages. I know these things, and I've witnessed all of this. And it's not that I know everything by any means, but and I've been in business for 26 years. I've done this for a really long time, and I've done it in so many different, vastly different industries and with different types of people and different missions. I'm like, wow, this all set me up for this. It all set me up to be in a position where when someone is ready to make a really radical life shift and really come home to who they're meant to be, really own what they want their legacy to be, how they want to be remembered. Yeah, by the way, making a lot more money is part of that. Like it's a byproduct. When you get aligned with who you believe you're meant to be, you start building resonance in the universe with God, however you want to call it. I love Gus, by the way. God, universe, spirit's my favorite. Really upsets my LDS friends. Not really. But what I find is really special is like when you start building that alignment, the resonance that happened, which is that perfect moment of mission, vision, values, purpose, the universe loves that. And it also abhors a vacuum. So as you start to build all of these things that are bettering the world, that vacuum oftentimes is a money vacuum. And the universe loves to fill it. And then I love to circulate it. I have all the toys. And they aren't just for me, it's for me to create love for others, to help other people have wonderful experiences. We live in a great house, and one of my clients is flying in town next weekend, and he's part of Front Row Dads also, and he's going through a divorce. And I'm like, look, A, you're staying with us. B, there's gonna be 20 men that love you and are going to love you. And we're gonna throw a dinner party. And the next morning we're gonna have volleyball, and then we're gonna do this, and we're gonna do this, and we're gonna do this. And it's an opportunity for me to pour out. All it is circulation of energy. It's the same thing as money. It's circulation of energy. How do we circulate the energy in a way that we don't constrict and have fear around it? Because anything that we fear, we live outside of faith in. Faith and love are the same, right? Fear is the antithesis. So how do we create a life that's less fear and more love?
I love that. By the way, big, not sponsored, but endorsed. Front Row Dads, big fan, big fan. And check out John Broman and his podcast, man, life-changing.
Absolutely.
Eric and myself.
So moved us to Austin, dude. Like that community of humans.
Yeah.
We met, and 5 months later, I was living here because I was like, I don't want to be around anyone except for these awesome humans.
Yeah, incredible place. So we're running a little bit less short on time. So we're going to do a rapid fire question here.
Ooh la la.
So see if you can answer these in a couple words. Here we go. First one. Favorite place you've ever flown?
Czech Republic, because you can take off and fly for 2 hours, cross 4 mountain ranges, land at ex-Soviet military bases, or at a winery, spend the night, and fly home when you probably shouldn't have.
Wow. Okay, I wasn't expecting
Nice.
that. All right. What is I think it'll be different for everyone, but what is your most important daily habit?
Choosing me.
Mm,
It's my nature to serve everyone else around me. It's been ingrained in me since I was a child. It's something I'm still fighting. I want to serve everyone else,
Yeah.
but I used to do it at the cost of me. And
Yeah.
now I choose to pour into what fills my cup first so that when I pour out, I don't pour from an empty cup.
I love that.
self-compassion. When I learned that, that helped me a lot through my grieving process.
Absolutely. It's also
Um,
the only way to grow.
yeah. One book you would recommend to developers?
Oh man, I have to imagine that the majority of developers are male, yes?
Sadly, yes, but we need more female developers out there.
100%. Aviator in paramotoring, it's less than 1% female. In fact, when we started, it was 0.1%. Now we're almost 50% staffed and we're 100% female led. And
Wow.
so I'm like super, super gung ho. I want my daughter to be able to look at anything in the world and feel like she can do it too. That said, every client that I work with, male or female, get the same books. There's two that start things off. I think that they're incredibly important. The first one is called No More Mr. Nice Guy. It's by Dr. Robert Glover. A couple of years ago, he became a dear friend. I actually spoke to him this morning. I cannot recommend this book highly enough. It's not just for men, it's for anyone who has men in their life. And it's a deeply scientific understanding of why guys have stepped away from healthy masculinity into alpha male BS or into diminutive feminine without honoring what the feminine's magic actually is, because the feminine is where all magic is created. So it's not to not to say that the feminine is lesser than, in fact, it's better than, but as men, we don't know how to play within these roles. And there's so much power in understanding the relationship you have, both men and women.
Hmm.
Okay. What would you say is the best advice you've ever received?
I hate advice.
Yo,
You did say
that
that,
is
yeah.
a
Yeah.
good
No,
one.
I mean, in all seriousness, I've received thousands of hours of incredible advice from people who care about me. And I think that the most valuable thing I've learned is that it's not about the advice, it's about the wisdom of the experience. So if you're still seeking advice, you're trying to take the onus of the decision off of your own shoulders, and you are in charge of you. You're not the victim here. You get to make your own choices, and you have to own them. So if you're sitting in a place where you feel like you need advice to make decisions, you really need to sit and look at yourself better.
That's beautiful. I love it.
Yes.
And great a great way to wrap this up is favorite advice, no advice. But Eric, thank you so much for joining us. Your story is an incredible reminder that building a meaningful career is about more than just output, and building an incredible life is more than just output. It's about resilience, risk, purpose, meaning, and so much more.
If people want to find me, Eric Farewell, EricFarewell on all socials, and ericfarewell.com. There's a newsletter there. My second book, currently titled The Royal Shift: How Do You Step into the Higher Version of Yourself so that you can overcome anything and not need anything from anyone, is going to be coming out very soon. We have a newsletter. We have all these different pieces and parts, and I'd love to share my story and hear from other people as well. So feel free to reach out.
Awesome. I love that all. Okay. Then, yeah, everybody, thank you for joining us for this episode, Eric. We really appreciate your time. Be sure that if you have thoughts and ideas and suggestions for things you've learned along the way, put your comments down in the I guess the comments box below
Just
on
leave some
the
advice
video.
down below, guys. We all need more
There you
advice.
go. Yeah.
Or a story, maybe.
A story would be good, yeah. Or like if you want to answer those lightning questions, feel free to do that. But either way, like and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate your support. And yeah, everybody, this is the Dev Life Podcast.